In today's world, we are increasingly dependent on technology. Our business and personal lives rely on it, but as you've probably noticed, it's unreliable. They promise it'll get better, but it usually gets worse. Our computers are slow, so we end up squinting at smartphones and tablets. We live in constant fear that something's going to happen to our personal data, so we're scared into paying for fake protection that proves useless when disaster strikes. Update attacks, fake Wi-Fi, cloud control, and other industry scandals are designed to keep the money flowing. The jokers we pay to fix our stuff have no clue what they're doing, so they do a virus scan and then wipe out our precious photos. Intelligent, successful people feel intimidated by the chaos and think it's somehow their fault. If they only knew what the industry was doing to them, they'd get torches and pitchforks. If only we had someone to explain it all in plain English so we can start protecting ourselves. Oh wait, we do! It's the Computer Exorcist Podcast with your host, Mark Anthony Arena.
What's happening behind your back now, right in front of your eyes.
From the Wallace Memorial microphone in my home office, overlooking the can of worms in downtown Rochester, New York, this is the Computer Exorcist Podcast. So happy you are joining us today. That's right, I said us, because it's been too long. It's been a little while. But we bring back our favorite special co-host. It's Dr. Mike.
Hello, everybody. I'm so glad to be back on the Computer Exorcist Podcast. And I'm so glad to go back to being a laughing track instead of actually trying to host this. So I get to just be the laugh track. And Mark, might I just say you are wearing a spiffy Big Tech Sucks button. How appropriate.
Yes, it's an 80s button that you act like a real physical button, not a software thing. It's a button that you can button to your shirt, and listener
that could
will
stab you.
Yeah, it did stab me as I was putting it in. Yep, and it makes a hole in my shirt and everything. Listener Will gave this to me a couple years ago when I met him, and he's just the most wonderful guy ever. He owns a winery on Hemlock Lake called Oneida, and I highly, highly recommend it. It's like the only winery in the universe that's fully organic, that makes Catholic sacramental wine, and, well, definitely the only one that plays reggae music for the grapes as they ferment.
Oh, wow. So do the grapes get a contact high?
I don't know, but it's just the most amazing place ever. He's a deep thinker, and he's a fan of the show, and just amazing.
Well, awesome.
So he gave me
He needs to build a banquet hall so that he can hold weddings instead of going to Casa Lager all the time.
Yeah, actually, both places are awesome venues for weddings.
They are.
Yeah.
I remember going to Casa Lager for a wedding. It was very, very nice.
Oh, yeah. My parents went for some corporate meeting a couple weeks ago, and the caterer, I forget who it was, did an awesome job. And apparently, and we won't get off into the flyover plates weeds, but apparently, so New York State attacked them in the 80s and said, okay, you're a wedding venue, but you're not allowed to have a kitchen. So they're only allowed to have outside caterers.
Oh, wow.
Because too bad for you. Yeah,
I'm speechless about that.
Because safety. I mean, it was before 9/11, so they couldn't say because of 9/11, because that, that's like the gold card for excuses. But yeah,
goes to show you, even back in the 80s, New York was broke.
Yeah,
we just didn't know it yet.
And backwards. So anyway, but they had a great time. Where are we going to start? So, side note, folks, if you're wondering who this guy is, this is.
Like a presidential election, I come around every so often.
Don't adjust your sets. There's nothing wrong with your TV, folks. This is Dr. Mike, and he is a high school buddy of mine, and he was a recurring guest on the Computer Exorcist show when I was on AM/FM radio, and we had such a blast and I told him, I was like, Mike, you should have your own show, and he's obsessed with Garbage Plates, which is the Rochester food, so I encouraged him to start his own podcast. It's called Flyover Plates Podcast. He does the agenda, and I'm the co-host and laugh track for his show. And we have an absolute blast on that show. And I really wish we were doing that show tonight, but we're still going to have a good time tonight.
We have to wait till after Thanksgiving so that we can critique our meals.
You know, I was thinking about this afternoon. As I was thinking that thought, I'm like, oh, yeah, I wish we were... No, yeah, we got to talk about our Thanksgiving meal. Okay.
I've got to hold off. So, spoiler alert. Tune in to Flyover Plates sometime in early December.
And we will discuss our Thanksgiving meals. And boy, we'll have a great... Yeah.
After the food comas and before Santa's cookies.
That's a great way to describe that episode. So
that's the title of the episode. I just made it up.
Okay.
All right. Let's delve into the computer tech world.
All right. So here on the Computer Exorcist Show, we read articles and then we ask our guests for their opinions. I have a feeling this guest will have some wacky opinions. Brace yourselves. All right, autoweek.com. And again, we're still backed up here. We're doing the backlog of articles. 2021. Tesla releases full self-driving Beta 9, but neglects bigger picture. Tesla has released what it's called full self-driving Beta 9, expanding the operation to city streets. And side note, folks, I've said this many times, but look, it's one thing to have beta software, and most software is just eternally beta now, where it's never finished. It's always a prototype, and too bad for you, you have to deal with it. But look, folks...
Oh, you mean like Windows?
Yeah, right? You know what? At least Tesla admits it. Windows claims that these products are finished products, but they are the most hastily designed garbage ever.
Anyway, go on.
Yes,
Proceed.
Thanks. Keep me on track here. So... But, you know, it's one thing to have software, because software is utter garbage, and whether or not we realize it, we kind of expect software to be utter garbage. But you have giant, 10,000-pound pieces of metal running people over, and they're in beta mode. Yeah, that's not cool. Anyway, the automaker now relies on Tesla vision cameras and drops the radar capability from the sensor suite, right? Like, okay, Mike, so... you don't need to be a doctor to know this, but Dr. Mike knows that we have eyes and ears and a tongue, right? Those are our sensors. Mm-hmm. Okay, and
a car horn and a finger.
What? but a great point though, is that we can communicate with other cars. That's a good point. I see what you're saying.
Right.
Okay, cool. So yeah, but. So I think what happened was, remember, this article was written during COVID, and Tesla decided to drop the radar and LiDAR and stuff from, the stuff that's outside of our visual spectrum. But they just relied on cameras, and they use that to achieve semi-autonomous operation. Look, if I'm a computer, if I'm a designer of an evil computer car thing, I would want it to have normal camera, visible spectrum camera, as well as radar and LiDAR and sonar and anything else I could get my hands on, just to make sure that this evil computer can see what's going on.
So, in my non-tech brain, so they're relying on cameras, not relying on radar, they're not relying on sonar, they're not doing any sub-visual text or anything.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that. That's like, it's no depth perception, right? And you see how blurry most photos are.
So in any event, if a bird flies through the camera, is the car just going to go off and start following that bird?
Following it, right? Assuming it's another car. It'll either follow it, or most likely it'll just slam on the brakes randomly, thinking that it's a giant object. And there was an article a while back. I can't remember what. I think it was. I don't know what auto magazine it was, but anyway, the guy was driving this large Kia sedan on a highway like way out in Montana, and the thing just slammed on the brakes randomly, and it was probably like a spider in the road or something, and it's just like, yep.
Well, okay, but if it sees a deer on the Lake Ontario State Parkway, which I have had happen to me when I was a young man, would it stop? Because I believe if you see a deer, the whole point is to minimize damage. You're supposed to speed up and just plow right into it.
Great question. Absolutely. In the case of a deer, you are supposed to speed up because technically it's safer. You're going to kill the deer anyways. You might as well go faster.
Minimize, yeah.
And minimize the damage. The problem is evil computers don't understand what deer are because they're not human. So if you program them to speed up, then all of a sudden you got these autonomous cars seeing old ladies in their cameras and then speeding up. So people do these pea brains, these computer guys, they think they're so smart, but they're such pea brains. It's, you know, they want to see how far they can take this joke called technology before people realize that the mind of man is holy. Okay.
From a legal standpoint, if you get into an accident with a self-driving car, are you technically responsible? Or it's a self-driving car, there is no driver. So who do you, from a legal standpoint, and I have very little legal knowledge about this, but who would you go after? The car manufacturer?
Great question. It's still very much up in the air, but I believe they're going after the auto manufacturer, which is cool because the programmer should be held accountable, but that opens up a beautiful Pandora's box. For once, it's a really good Pandora's box of guess what? Mm-hmm. If they're holding the software developer liable, then why don't we also hold Microsoft liable for every single product they've ever sold? Because they are all non-functional.
You're going to go down the rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah. So let's continue on here because it might answer a little bit. It might shine some more light on what you're talking about. But yeah, great question, Mike. So lack of proper driver monitoring systems and the need for constant supervision by the driver raises questions about such a system's ultimate utility. Okay, and here they're arguing, well, it should be more useful if it's fully autonomous, and what's the point unless it's not fully? And my answer, I know deep down, the answer is it'll never be perfect, so stop doing it. But anyway, Beta 9 addresses most issues, but there will be unknown issues, so please be paranoid, Musk tweeted.
Well, at least he's being honest about it. He's saying the quiet part out loud.
Right.
He's saying the quiet part out loud.
As y'all know, right? Update attacks fix many things, and then they break many more. So he's admitting it right there in the public, what I've been saying for years. Update attacks fix things and break things. I love how he just says, please be paranoid.
I do believe you coined the term of anti-improvements.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so they'll improve some things and they'll anti-improve other things. And I mean, anti-improvements are usually deliberate tweaks that they thought would help. Whereas update attacks are just random collateral damage, if that makes sense.
That does.
So it's a great point, though. There is a little difference there, because update attacks usually make things worse. Some of them intentional, some of them not. One issue is Tesla's...
Don't drive your self-driving car on the Lake Ontario State Parkway in the fall. Save the deer.
And save the deer. Tesla has been selling something it bills as full self-driving for some time now, all the while requiring drivers to stay alert and be ready to take over operations at all times, while also warning them that the system may do the wrong thing at the worst time. Thank you. So what they're saying here is, well, it's not really full self-driving if that's the case, and that's fine. But I like how they're saying, look, you need to be, because plenty of people have been in Teslas and gotten in accidents because they weren't paying attention when the evil computer was driving. Okay.
Sure.
So please stay alert and look out, because computers do the wrong thing at the worst time. All day today, my computer was doing the wrong thing at the worst time, and it was sitting on my desk. So
just trying to set up 10 minutes ago, it was starting to go wonky.
Yeah, all day I was typing things and things were popping up and flying around and whatever, and I have the best operating system ever.
It sounds like that was a statement to basically hold the car manufacturer harmless of any liability, and it sounds like they're trying to put the onus back on the driver.
Good.
Which again, you're the one behind the wheel. You're the one operating the car. You should know, and you're putting your faith and you're putting your trust into a computer and hoping and praying that it doesn't, go drive down a stray dog.
Yeah, and again, I'm gonna say this before I get back on track, but why? Why? When there are so many millions of people unemployed and millions of people who want to drive you around for a living so they can feed their families, why?
What about people who actually race cars for a living and actually learn how to drive, actually know how to operate a vehicle at high speeds through sharp turns? You're not going to put that on an autonomous computer.
Yeah, well, actually, if you're on a racetrack, it's actually easier, right? Because it's just like a racing game for PlayStation or something. They can apply those rules to a racetrack, no problem. But that would be sad if we're sitting around cheering for different robots racing each other.
One final note, Mark, I have a question for you. What do you think the pass rate of these self-driving vehicles would be if they took their driving test at Sykes and Maple?
0.
Absolutely 0. I think that's the intersection that you don't want to take your driver test at.
And that's on the west side of downtown Rochester, folks.
I know everybody and their brother took it at Emerson and Glide,
and I
took it in East Rochester, actually.
I failed in East Rochester somehow, even though I was a huge car nut and read every car magazine, and then I passed at Emerson and Glide.
I had like 6 lanes to do a K-turn, okay? It wasn't that bad, but everybody has told me Sykes and Maple is always the toughest. Maybe it's because you're going to get shot. I have no idea.
That's amazing.
But,
so you have to look out for, put your signal on, look in your left mirror, and look over your shoulder for bullets.
And make sure your car's not on blocks when you put it in drive.
Oh, man. If for more of that content, folks, please tune into the Flyover Plates podcast.
All right, moving on.
Oh, that's great. And you know what? Side note here, I get it. These arrogant scumbags think that, well, computers are better than humans. All right, fine. If you can make a computer that's better than, some of the worst drivers out there, I had a buddy in college, and his little sister flipped over 6 Subaru Foresters. The parents kept buying her new ones. She kept flipping them over. So look, maybe a computer can possibly drive better than her and not flip 6 Subarus. But look, maybe make it a choice instead of this, everyone all has to participate, Medicare for all kind of thing. You know what? Just make it a choice. If you're a really bad driver, here, flip a switch and let the Tesla drive for you. But if you're a good driver like me and Mike, then hey, how about we keep our lives in our own hands?
Well, and then you're going to get the cars that control the speed limit now. And everybody's going to be going 40 across 490.
Not that everyone already doesn't. I mean, everyone already does that.
Nobody ever does.
So, yeah, in Europe, actually, this year in 2024, at least in Britain, possibly in the EU, cars now attack you, the driver, if you go over the speed limit. They have bells and whistles and buzzers. For the moment, you're allowed to disable those attacks if you go deep into the computer menus. But, yeah, that's another good point of how technology attacks us.
Before we go on to the next question, I am gonna make a suggestion for this. Like you said make it optional. I say make it a subscription service, because if they're going to charge for seat warmers, they might as well charge for autonomous driving.
And great point, actually, because if they make it an extra charge, then luckily most people will ignore it or not buy into it, and that's a beautiful thing. But a great point, because with this technology, usually they force feed it to us, they force attack it to us. I can't think of it. Well, like the parking brake sensors and the rear cameras, and those are all now forced on us by law. And there's got to be some kind of hidden cronyism there, where it's oh hey, lobbyist is going to show up and say, yeah, you should definitely start mandating billions and trillions of safety computers in cars, which means that the cars have to be thrown away every year.
Yeah, my car is a 2018, and the rear view blind spot sensors malfunctioned on it. Still drives great, but it actually forces me to look on the side to change lanes on the interstate. So it's a 2018 car.
And my buddy always told me, he said, my dad's got a car, and he said, just keep driving until all the features fall off. Just keep driving, and who cares? But Mike, my fear, and this is not unfounded, my fear is that all those evil technologies will have to be part of your inspection. At least in New York, where it's, okay, look, hey, Mike, you know what? Your lane sensor camera doesn't work anymore? Shame on you. Put your car in the garbage.
They'll find that little thing will just shut the engine down, and then you're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
right,
It's
what else you got?
like a stop bit. I guess a programmer would call it a stop bit, where it's if and I had an '04 Saab and it was glorious, but since GM developed it, it was a raging pile of garbage. And if it wasn't happy, there was an evil screen in the center of the dashboard, and it was every day it had another problem. It was like it was like a bad ex-girlfriend, right? Every day it had another problem. It was like, shame on you, your sensor's bad, shame on you. And so that's the deal.
So dump her. So dump it.
I did. It was glorious and loud and fast, and it was a 5-speed, but I sold it. So here we go. Anyway, back to the article. Another question that remains unaddressed by Tesla is what precisely is the point of a system that requires one to stay alert? What did I say here? I can't even read my own handwriting. It sounds a lot like just driving. While these features are designed to become more capable over time, the currently enabled features do not make the vehicle autonomous, okay? So yeah, full self-driving is kind of a misnomer. If the driver is already there, keeping their hands on the steering wheel, are they not just babysitting the software? And you know what? Yes, they're babysitting the software because, as we've said, software can't be trusted.
It's like Homer Simpson at the nuclear power plant.
I love it. I love it. I gotta write that down right now. That is just... Okay, here we go. Next article. Let's get through this.
All right.
But you're right. That's absolutely right. That's the last person in the world you want to trust, right? Carandriver.com. This is from sometime in August of 21. GM sues Ford over BlueCruise name for the hands-free driving technology. GM filed a lawsuit Friday accusing Ford of trademark infringement and unfair competition. I could see trademark infringement with the naming, but why would it be unfair competition? They said that BlueCruise name is too similar to Super Cruise. Ford says that cruise is a common automotive term, and it's like GM trying to own the term hybrid or turbo, providing a list of other companies that also use the word cruise. So that's pretty cool. Ford said it intended to file a request with the USPTO to have GMs. So they fought back and said, you know what, we're going to have your trademarks removed. We're going to have them rescinded, Cruise and Super Cruise. So the industry, especially, I mean, I could see maybe Super Cruise being a trademark, but Cruise? Apparently GM trademarked the word cruise?
Well, Mark, since both companies are bankrupt, Royal Caribbean is going to come in and trademark the term cruise.
Right,
because
what
they
about
actually
that?
make money. Because they actually make money.
Right. And so they said, so the industry as a whole can freely use the word cruise to safely describe driver assist technology. GM, along with its autonomous taxi subsidiary Cruise, filed a lawsuit in federal court in an attempt to prevent Ford from using the BlueCruise moniker. All right, so that's what it is. GM didn't really care too much until they bought a company called Cruise. Okay, I don't think they developed that in-house. They bought the company Cruise, and now all of a sudden they're like, oh, shoot, we gotta defend this trademark. Oh, boy, So GM had no choice but to vigorously defend our brands, they said. And in a statement, Ford defended its choice, saying that drivers for decades have understood what cruise control is, every automaker offers it, and cruise is common shorthand for cruise control. And there are plenty of technologies that use the word cruise, such as Hyundai's Smart Cruise. What about that? And GM contending that GM had zero issue with other companies saying cruise. Ford compared the situation to GM trying to assert trademark ownership on hybrid or turbo. Ford's decision to rebrand by using a core mark used by GM and Cruise will inevitably cause confusion, said GM. Look, all of it is confusion. All of it is utter confusion. No one has any clue what brands are what. You have trillions of brands out there and trillions of trademarks of products and services that these brands use. All my clients are totally confused by all of it. I'm starting to be confused by all of it. That's enough, folks.
So Mark, GM should have just collaborated with Hollywood actor Tom Cruise and just made their trademark cruise system called Tom Cruise, and it'll just look like all of the exploding helicopters and planes and cars that are in his Mission Impossible movies, and it would actually be realistic.
I love it. So we got, what did you say? Royal Caribbean Cruise, Tom Cruise.
Yeah, Royal Caribbean Cruise, Tom Cruise. I'm sure there's Cruise from the Cars movie.
Oh, that too? Okay, so maybe that cartoon character is going to sue Ford and GM.
Who knows?
Great point.
It's what happens when you have young kids. But no, it would just be, in that case, if they just called it Tom Cruise and it blew up on impact, it would just be life imitating art.
Yeah, I've had way too many GM cars. You know, as a high schooler, I loved car magazines, like I said, and I was a big GM fan. Like, my parents always bought GM at the time, and I loved all the brands and blah, blah, blah. And then I owned a couple of them, and I was just so burned by them.
I remember back in the day, my parents had, like, the GM MasterCard, like the GM credit card.
Yeah, my parents had that.
So all of your purchases went toward points or a discount off of GM vehicle, and I'm just like, oh, okay.
But that's actually funny. I mean, it's cool, of course, but and my parents had it, but you know what? That it makes me realize, all right, you spend on your credit card, like I'm incentivized. I love putting money on my credit card because I'm excited about getting hotel points. So I'm excited about spending money on a credit card, which will allow me to buy a car sooner. So it's just you're getting sucked into their world, right? Where it's like, hey, you know what? I'll give you a couple of coupons for my car that you're going to buy, but it's not like you're getting a free hotel room, okay? You know, I get my points, I get a free hotel room, I walk away. But that's like, oh, wow, I get a discount so I can buy their car sooner?
Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure the GM car that I had lasted about 60,000 miles before the transmission blew.
Mike, I don't know if you've heard all my episodes about that, but I had an Oldsmobile that I got brand new as a high school graduation gift, and the transmission blew at 60,000.
Mm-hmm.
Like both of us, 60,000 transmission.
Transmission, exactly.
And it was actually an $18 transmission sensor that blew, but it cost $888.18. I'll never forget that for the labor.
And this was back in the mid '90s, so that's like what, 6,000 today?
Yeah. All right, last article. We got 4 minutes here. AndroidGuys.com. Windows 10X crossed off the drawing board. Windows 10X was Microsoft's competitor to Chrome OS that was planned later this year. However, the project has been scrapped. Microsoft's efforts toward a user interface refresh has exhausted resources, and that would have gone toward 10X. Microsoft plans not to waste those innovations. Oh boy. I guess the idea, I didn't even know what it was. I had to look it up. Apparently it was a planned version of like, I want to say a trimmed down, sleeker version of Windows that was designed for dual screen foldable devices. They were going to create a whole new genre of products that were going to waste your time and to show you ads.
Was that like Windows ME?
Windows ME was a product that was designed to crash after like a couple hours. I mean, I had Windows ME when it was new, when it crashed. Yeah.
Wasn't that the one between XP and 7 that lasted like about 6 months? Was that before?
Windows Millennium was like a sister product to 2000. Okay, Windows 2000 was the advanced one. Like NT/2000 was the advanced one.
Okay.
And then Windows 98 and subsequently Millennium were the home edition one. But Millennium was so horrible that they actually cut the family line, so to speak, of the home versions. So Windows XP, both home and pro, and every version of Windows after that was built on 2000, the pro edition.
So was Windows ME like Fredo from The Godfather?
Yeah. What would I do without you, Mike? See, you're putting it into plain English.
I gotta put some popular culture in here.
Yes, thank you, because I'm sick of doing this alone. So look, Windows 10X was still Windows 10. It was a version of Windows 10, but it was supposed to be dumbed down, or I guess even more dumbed down. Luckily, it fell apart. There was also the Windows S Mode scandal, where Windows S Mode wasn't a sleek down user interface. It wasn't meant for tablets or foldables or whatever. It was meant for cheapy laptops. And the idea was you weren't allowed to run programs on it. So it was basically like Windows 8 RT, which was another nightmare. Yeah, so Windows 10s, my clients would buy it and they'd say, Mark, I can't run programs on it. And you were only allowed to use Internet Explorer and nothing else ever. So you basically couldn't use it, and maybe Minesweeper or something, but you couldn't use it. So I had to come and break it and put a fresh copy of real Windows 10. I had to liberate it. It was a nightmare.
It was one of their attempts to shoehorn you into the Windows.
Yes.
The Windows facade, the Windows phenomenon. You must
into the Windows App Store is what it was. They were trying to force you into Windows App Store, but the Windows App Store is 98% scams.
Sure it is, because who's monitoring it?
Right, and that's, we've done episodes about that, but it's,
Yeah, that whole Windows 10X, it sounds like it's addition by subtraction. I mean, they just scrapped it, and I think the whole world's a better place because of it.
Love it. Love it. Yep, less is always more in everything here. Well, this is just, you are awesome. This is awesome as always.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, we slew some articles, as you say. And look, we got to do another catch-up episode because I have 450 articles.
Yeah, oh my.
In the backlog, and so we got to do more of these. I have to do at least 3 to 4 articles per episode from now on to even have any hope of catching up in the next couple of years.
That's not to mention the ones I send you on a weekly basis.
Yeah, so luckily, I mean, people are sending me less of them lately, but still, we're going to get through them. And I'll certainly, delete ones that are duplicates or whatever. Yeah, folks, check out Flyover Plates podcast if you want to hear more of me and Mike together talking about fun things.
And going off on much deeper tangents.
Oh yeah, it's a long talk show. As a matter of fact, we do 1-hour episodes, and the fans actually loved it that we lost track the other day and did a 2-hour episode. They all want another one.
Once I get the content boiling, it will spill over, and I will hopefully we will bring joy to my listening audience as well as this one as well.
Mike is he'll have to keep me up even later for those 2-hour episodes. But yeah, we're gonna do some shout outs. I know listeners Barb and Bob sent me an email, so they were listeners of my show, and then they discovered your show, so now they're fans of you now. They left me and went to you, so we'll read their fan mail.
Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. There's enough humor and cynicism to go around between the both of us.
A near infinite amount. So thecomputerexorcist.com to find out more or to dedicate your life to fighting the Silicon Valley. Thanks so much, and talk to you next time. See ya!
See ya!
It's alright now. Make it on my own. I paid my time and my dues, and now I'm coming home. First they give you an inch, and then they take a mile.